Welcome YouTube customer. This video will try to explain YouTube EDA solution on Windows Universe 12.11 and Unidata 8.2.1 Windows environment. Before you want to use an EDA, make sure you have SQL Server on your environment. It can be SQL Server 2019 or other version. Also, you can use a SQL Server Express version. Then first, you can using Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio tool connect to your SQL Server environment. For my demo, I created I was using two different database, two different SQL Server versions, and one is for Universe, one is for Unidata, and also suggesting using the server property set to SQL Server and Windows authentication mode, and create SQL Server user connect to your SQL Server machine. And also for EDA solution, it will require Microsoft SQL Server native client. You can download from Microsoft website. I will put on this link in the YouTube description field, so you can go there to download the right version to work with the EDA. And also on the latest YouTube version already is 64-bit, include the Universe version, Unidata version, both is 64-bit version now. So when you choose the driver, you must be select to 64-bit and native client, also create a 64-bit system DSN. After you set up on the server side on the ODBC DSN setting, then you can try to use an EDA Schema Manager tool connect to your U2 server. And for U2 server, you must have license authorized to using EDA. Then for the EDA have a particular configuration file called edaconfig file. On Windows environment, it's not necessary to set EDA configuration file. But if you try to turn on the logging, you need to create the EDA configuration file to set the log level. It can be 0 to 8. So the first things, make sure your U2 server have a license, EDA license. For Universe, you can run UV region -Z to check your license. For Unidata, you just run version command to verify your license. For the EDA configuration file called edaconfig, it's optional for Windows environment. First, where you need to put it on Universe, basically you need to put it inside the UV home directory. On my environment will be C drive U2 UV folder. Make sure EDA config file is no extension like a edaconfig.txt. Basically, it's just the EDA.config file. For Unidata, it will be put in the include folder. For my environment is run Unidata 8.2, so you will be U2 UD8.2 include folder. Inside the EDA config file, you only need to do is set two lines. The first line is called driver equal SQLSRV. On the latest U2 version, we already support MySQL and PostgreSQL, so the driver setting it can be different. But for my testing, just set up the driver equal SQLSRV. For the log level, you can set 0 to 8. They have all different logging level settings, so you can look at the EDA menu to see the difference. After you set it, you make any EDA connection, you will see create a log file. The log file, it can be basically is the temporary folder. By default, universe will be C, U2, UV, UV10 folder. Unidata will be C, U2, UDA2, and 10 folder. So when you set up everything, then you try to set up your ODBC DSN, set up system DSN. So a lot of customers are very confusing. On the latest Windows environment, they have a 32-bit and 64-bit. For latest U2 server, you always 64-bit. So you need to start as Microsoft ODBC Administrator Tool is 64-bit. But how can you find the 64-bit ODBC Administrator Tool? In simple way, you can go to a control panel, System and Security Administrator Tool to find the 64-bit Microsoft Administrator Tool. If you cannot find it, actually you can go to File Explorer, then you can go to the folder to start called ODBC AD32.ESD. That is 64-bit in the System 32 folder. If you have another folder called Sys.64, they also have ODBC AD32.ESE, but they want actually 32-bit. It's just for 32-bit environment. So for this demo, I always using 64-bit. On EDA Schema Manager, I will try to show you on Universe. I like to connect to SQL Server 2019 Express version. Is show you how they set the EDA data source, how to start a schema manager, and to create a schema and convert to SQL Server Express. On Unidata side, I like to regular SQL Server 2019, so I will connect to SQL Server 2019 UD. Actually, it's connect to SQL Server UD underscore database. So I will show you one by one to explain to you. The first I like to show you is a SQL Server. On my environment, on the SQL Server, I have two versions installed on my machine. So if you look at my environment, I already have a SQL Server 2019 version. Also have a SQL Server 2019 Express, SQL Express version. Both versions, I always suggest to turn on the connection mode. If you go to the property, inside the property, they have a very important setting. It's security. They have a mode called SQL Server and Windows Authentication mode. Please turn it on. Also have make sure the configuration is setting list is protocol SQL Server TCP/IP is enabled. So it's very important to between two different connections. If this one is not turning on, it's not allow you to connect to different other machine. So also for my testing, I also create particular SQL Server user here. I call it U2 user. It's the SQL Server user. So after SQL Server is ready on the server side, and next step, you need to create the 64-bit ODBC system DSN. Before you can set up the DSN, you need to install Microsoft SQL Native Client 64-bit driver. So where you can find it, I also will put this link inside the description field. The link is here. It's Microsoft link. they will try to download MicroSQL Server 2012 native client. Also have a latest client, but this one is minimal requirement. So inside this Microsoft website, you can click on the download. They have a 64-bit and 32-bit. For our U2 EDA solution, you will require this 64-bit native clients. So after you get this, and when you install it, then on your old 64-bit ODBC administrator, if you go to the driver, inside the driver, after installation, you will see this driver installed on your machine. So after you install it, then we can start to set up the system DSM. So for my demo, I will using SQL Server connect to same driver. I can connect to SQL Server Express version, and also can connect to SQL Server 2019 server. So the system, I like to create the first one. The first one, I will show you. I want to install the SQL Server 2019. So you will see I create a new one. So this one is will connect to SQL Server Express version. So that's the server setting like this. The machine name and SQL Express. And next, I need to show connect to. I choose the SQL Server authentication mode. Then I provide a username and password. So I can choose. You see the database link. For this one, I will using for demo to universe. I connect to UV database. Connect. Next, finish. And after finish, I test the data source. You see the successful. So this one I will using for universe demo. I also like to create another one. Another one is UD1 is for UD unit data 821 test. So this one I connect to SQL Server 2019. So next, same thing. I connect to SQL Server 2019. So after this, I want to show you is connect to UD underscore database, and next, and finish. So I can test. It's successful. So everything is setting correct on the Windows ODBC administrator. So after everything set up, system 64-bit system DSM is set up, ready, so we can start to working on the U2 side. For the U2 side, very important things. First step, you need to connect to your server environment. Make sure you have the license to run the EDA config file. So I will show you. The first thing you need to connect to, go to your Windows environment on Universe. That's the Universe. You can run UV regen -Z. So first thing you need to check your EDA license is yes. That's on Universe environment. If you're running on the Unidata environment, then you need to, on the Unidata share, then you basically run version, then you can check the EDA license, yes, so you can start working on your EDA schema manager tool. So I will show you from the universe. I can disconnect. Before I connect, I want to restart it. So first things, close it. I connect to universe. So after you connect, I like to install the first one. I like to create the EDA data source. So for universe, I like to connect to SQL Server Express version. So that's the setting. So this one you can give another EDA data source name. Then this one, SQL Server 2019 Express, the name is defined is the 64-bit system DSM. The name must be matched on your system DSM setting. The driver, because this one is connected to Universe 12.1.1, so they have a lot of new options. Because this one can connect to SQL Server, MySQL, and PostgreSQL. For SQL Server, it must be choosing the SQLSRV -1NF option. Another you will see like a com.1NF. That's for MySQL and PostgreSQL option. So after this, you need to add the user called U2, and you can see edit. So you can add the new user, is a SQL Server user called U2 and password. And after you set it, and you just need to test it. So I know it's the EDA data source setup, everything is correct on server side. So after you set the EDA data source, then next step you can start to testing. I already create a couple different file. For example, like a stage 2, actually the same thing like a stage. Also have a student. So this one I can that's a universe. So I have a customer 2. So I had to show you these two files you can easily to convert to SQL Server Express. So after EDA data source has created, then I can start to convert the universe data file. So right now I choose the file called stage to S2. It's the same thing like a stage. So first I right click on the new schema, EDA schema manager. So I can use in the same thing called the same name stage 2. So next I choose in the SQL Server Express. That's the EDA data source we just created. So after created, I finish. Then I can use in the check schema, verified, so successful, and also you can show the create table syntax. Then I can try to convert it. Then if you have convert before, you can force to drop. So if not, and first time you just run EDA convert. This command you can run after you create a schema. You can run EDA convert inside the EDA schema manager tool. Also, you can just go to the universe share to run EDA convert command. It's the same things. So next, I will also show you a little bit if I convert to another file called customer. So right click, I can create the EDA schema manager to create a customer 2 schema, and I choose the same SQL Server Express version. So I finish. So after I create a schema, I just default which select all the D type field. Then I can do the conversion. It's just the same thing to convert. So type records is successful convert to SQL Server Express. So if you go back to SQL Server, the SQL Server Management Studio tool, and go back to my Express version is here. So from here, I look at the database. I know I will connect to UV underscore database, and in the tables, if I refresh, so you will see here, actually I create 3 tables. One is for stage 2. So if you look at this, you will see you will see the data is all here. If you see the customer 2, actually it will expand 2 tables. One is for single value table, one is multi value table. It's called customer 2 underscore orders MV. So we can take a look. Something could run it. So that's the successful convert universe stage 2 file and customer 2 file to SQL Server Express. So if you go back to the universe share, so you can run the command. So list stage 2. So this data is come from SQL Server Express. Same thing for list customer 2. Is same thing connect to SQL Server Express. If you go back to File Explorer environment, so that's my file Explorer. After universe stage 2 file and the customer 2 file are converted, then you can go back your Windows environment on the hs.sales account and looking for the file. So first I go back to check the stage 2 file inside the hs.sales. So hs.sales have a stage. So this the new file is just created. Actually, it's the EDA file pointer called stage 2. So inside here, you will see also have a stage 2.eda save. This one is original universe file. So we just renamed original data file became stage 2.eda save. Same thing for customer 2.eda save. So if I already turn on the EDA config file in the UV home directory I create called EDA config file, so I will show you. So if you turn on the EDA config file, so that's the EDA config inside UV home. So I'll show you the content just like this. Called driver equal SQLSRV and log level equal 8. So if you create this one, then you can go to look at the UV10 folder. So if you go to universe UV10, yeah, that's the UV10 folder. So all the log file EDA driver log will put here. So that's for universe. I'd like to show you another one. As Unidata side is the same thing for Unidata. So if I same thing connect to using the EDA schema manager. So next one I will demo to connect to Unidata 821. So we'll close the universe one. So this one I need to create the EDA data source called SQL Server 2019 UD. So this one we already create the 64-bit system DSN using a Microsoft SQL Server native client connect to SQL Server 2019 version. Then driver, you will choose the SQLSRV.1NF option. So you will see this option to this option is a little bit different. On the Universe 12.1 start to support MySQL and PostgreSQL. So you will see another option called COM-1NF driver option. But for this one, for Unidata 821, you only can choose is SQL Server option. So same thing for you. You can create the connect SQL Server user called U2, and after you create the user, then you can verify this test is successful. So we know we create one particular SQL Server 2019 UD. So this one, and I can go to the demo account. After UD data EDA data source has been created successful, then next we can try to convert unit data files. So for my test environment, I create something called stage S2. So I can right click, I can create the EDA schema just like a universe, but this one actually will convert to SQL Server 2019. So I convert, I choosing the EDA SQL Server 2019 UD. So we connect to and convert it. Then I can run EDA convert. So this one is convert 9 record convert to SQL Server 2019. Same thing, I can connect to convert another file called student2. Student2, I create the EDA map schema. So inside here, I created a schema called student2. So using the same unit data EDA data source, SQL Server 2019 UD. So next, and using connect, so I can run the convert, EDA convert. So US6 records convert successful. So after convert unit data, because student have single value, meta value, and meta sub value, so it will expand 3 tables. So we go back to looking for SQL Server on the another. I have 2 SQL Server on this machine. So this one is connect to SQL Server 2019. So this one I refresh. So I have so many files. So if you're looking for student 2, so student 2 actually they have 3 files because student 2 dot student 2 and student 2 dot CGA-MV, CGA-MS. So there were 3 different tables. Also I convert to state S2, so I can the records will be here. So only 9 records on this demo machine. So you will see everything convert to SQL Server 2019. So if you go back at this one, I also turn on the logging on the unit data A2. So if you go back to my unit data A2 environment, includes, I create a file called edaconfig file. Right click, I can show you the setting is driver equal SQLSRV and log level is 8. So after create this and I do every EDA action, you will basically log to here called EDA driver log, and I just did right now is this one. So I show you very quick. So that is the EDA driver log like this. So I hope you can start to learn our EDA solution working on the Windows environment, and you can start to work on with the EDA solution on your U2 server.